Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2026 mod career mode. This is episode number 13 today for the Japanese Grand Prix. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Canadian Grand Prix, then be sure to go check the one out before you see this one, because we're into the last 4 races of the season. It is very much crunch time at the moment, but off the back of the Canadian Grand Prix, very chaotic one in the end with 2 red flags, a safety car thrown in there, and all added to a pretty successful Grand Prix in the end. We managed to navigate all of that chaos in a decent way. Alexander Albon with a surprise win. It was looking likely it was going to be Max Verstappen, but the bad luck just continues for Ferrari. But we got a very, very solid second place and beat out all of our championship rivals to take the lead of the Drivers' Championship once again, ahead of Liam Lawson in second place. Fernando Alonso from first down to third, as Red Bull were the big losers from the Canadian Grand Prix. Fernando himself spinning out of a points paying position to all the way down the bottom, and even before that it wasn't an exceptionally great race for Red Bull. They lacked a bit of pace around there, and it was a quiet one for Pierre Gasly, having been knocked out early in qualifying and never really recovered until the very end of the race, thanks to that final red flag. He's a lucky man. I think he would have been a bit lower if it wasn't for that, to be honest. So it means going into this, Alonso's on the back foot now, down to third place. Gasly is only 1 point off Alonso though, so he's still in the mixer. But what is going to be very interesting going into Japan and then the next 3 races, Qatar, Jeddah, the Brazilian Grand Prix finale, is Ferrari are now the best team on the grid. On paper, in theory, according to the R&D chart, they have made further upgrades, and it looks like the Ferrari, their maxed out car potential is higher than the My Team car, higher than McLaren, higher than Red Bull seemingly, because I thought pretty much we're all getting to maxed out cars. We'd already gotten there basically, but no, Ferrari take it even higher. And so, well, they've had their fair share of bad luck. Surely now, in one of these last 4 races, they're going to be able to take a race win then, either Mick Schumacher or Max Verstappen. And it's not just them also making and continuing to upgrade their car. You've got Aston Martin, Mercedes making upgrades finally, actually, for their sake. Alfa Romeo, Haas, and Audi now as close as they ever have been to the likes of ourselves and McLaren on the R&D chart when we zoom right in. It's hard to tell really, because everything's so close. Like it's so close that if you zoom this out to like the scaling that we had maybe 2 seasons ago, you probably wouldn't even see much of a difference on the R&D chart between like 8 of those teams there. So yeah, it's pretty close, and means the drivers are going to make more of the difference, or track to track dependency will be even more important. And we saw that at Canada. Red Bull looked awful after looking so strong in previous races, and maybe maybe the reverse might be said around here. Maybe Red Bull will be back to form around a circuit like Japan compared to Canada. I know for our team last season, Suzuka was looking pretty darn strong, but then we had a bit of a controversial race this time last season where the Red Bull of Lando Norris brake checked us at about this point on this straight going to the brake zone. Hopefully we're going to be avoiding any of that. You know what? It was almost a terrible start to the weekend, as I just went for it. I just went for my 1 lap and I thought that was going to be good enough. I was very wrong. We nearly got knocked out in Q1. Thankfully, just like Gasly did in Canada, we skate through in the first part of qualifying, but we need to pull up our socks then for the second part and make sure we get through into the top 10 shootout. There's also potentially some rain involved at the very end of this Q2 session, and definitely into Q3, so that's going to also be another spanner into the works. But generally, the My Team car has gone well on this year's game at Suzuka, and I have gone well at Suzuka. I think my pace around here is pretty damn decent. The only thing we need to worry about is, just incidents like we had last season, and sometimes the tyre wear and fuel levels can be a bit interesting around here. Sometimes you do have to do a little bit of lift and coast, but in Q2, not thinking about lifting and coasting, but we are going to coast into the pit lane on our second flyer, because the rain started to fall midway through the lap, so there was no improvements to be made. Thankfully, our first run was good enough to be up in P4, but Gasly showing some strength there and showing our car is actually genuinely decent around here in P1. But look at that, Mick Schumacher second place, Sainz in third, so both Audis into the top 10 shootout, along with both McLarens, both Red Bulls. But unfortunately for Red Bull, at the moment, at least going off Q2, doesn't look like a massive bounce back in form because they're down in P9 and 10. So our Red Bull again struggling, you know, with these just last few races we have in the calendar, just not suiting their car as much as the middle portion of the season did, where Alonso is picking up those podiums, picking up those points to see him lead the championship before the Canadian Grand Prix. But maybe the rain might help them out because we're here in Q3, but we're here in Q3 crucially on a set of dry tyres, because as I started Q3, my engineers put me on softs and they were fine with me going out, so I thought, okay, maybe it's not too wet. We went out and it was, well, it looks very, very wet out there, but there's still actually a decent amount of grip, to be honest, for what you can see is visually a very wet circuit, but we're on slick tyres. So we finished the lap out, a little bit shaky at the end of the lap. DRS gets disabled as well halfway through Sector 3. So in the end of it, I can't really tell if we gained anything going on slicks then. It seems like my teammate and plenty of others went on Inters straight away, but I feel like it should be a suggestion from your engineer if I was looking to go on slicks to say, oh, okay, the rest of the top 10 aren't. Let's put you over to the recommended strategy. But they didn't recommend me the Inters. They just said, yeah, crack on this slick. So I just went out there, finished the lap because I thought I may as well. And then going on to Inters at the end of the session, not really finding any time. No time improvements, even in the last sector. So basically what's happened here is at the start of the session, it wasn't wet enough for my engineers to recommend me definitely go on Inters. Then by the time I got onto Inters, it's too wet to produce the same lap times the others did on Inters at the start of the session. Basically, there was a much more wetter track at the end of Q3. So everyone who went straight onto Inters at the start of the session, they got the best circuit for those tyres because there wasn't as much standing water. And so you've got Mick Schumacher on pole position, you know, after Ferrari becoming the best team on the grid. So that's a bit ominous, to be honest. But Liam Lawson, one of our direct rivals, way up in second place. That's unfortunate. Meanwhile, myself and Alonso, two of his other, you know, rivals in the standings, down in P9 and 10 because it's myself and both Red Bull cars. Looks like they also got caught out in that. The Red Bull team also put their drivers out on slicks at the start, and all three of us got caught out of the track just getting way too wet by the time we actually made the switch to Inters. Whereas Gasly did start on Inters. He's not done amazingly, to be fair. He's been out qualified by an Audi as well, so maybe there just was a lack of pace in this car, but you know, he's still only 4 tenths off, whereas we're 2.3 tenths off, scratching our heads off why on earth we just weren't even told to just switch on to Inters straight away. Having had such a great Canadian Grand Prix, we're now fully on the back foot now for Japan. So very overcast conditions here at Suzuka as we go onto a formation lap ahead of the full Grand Prix, but no rain is forecast, so it'll be all dry. Quite a different selection of tyres for a lot of people. Some, well, the two Red Bulls on hard tyres, so they're the only ones starting on hards. A few people outside the top 10 on softs, and then most of the people inside the top 10, barring those Red Bulls, on mediums. I've not opted to start on the hards because, unlike Canada, I think high-speed circuit like Japan, you're really going to lose out being on hards, even at the start with the heavier fuel, because of that lack of just initial biting grip. And what doesn't help is I've somehow stopped way early before my marker, and I'm way out of position on my grid slot. So we have a bit more work to do on this start to try and make up some ground, make up a couple of meters as we go to 5 red lights. The Japanese Grand Prix, the Ferrari off pole position, but it's a slow getaway for Schumacher. It's a slow one for quite a few people, and we've launched it through on the middle to get up into P4. What an unbelievable start. Ironically, as I was parked well, you know, behind my actual grid line, we've had one of the best starts we've had in the last like 4 episodes. We've had some horrendous starts and just being boxed in at turn 1 in the last few episodes. So very comical that this is where we've got a great start when I actually was not even in proper position in the formation lap. And this is a replay then on the onboard from Teo Pourchaire in the Audi. Cracking launch for both McLarens. Horrendous getaway for the pole sitter. Schumacher's behind me. He was on pole and he's now behind me, a man who qualified down in 9th place. Incredible scenes. My teammate also got a bad getaway. To be honest, most people on the left-hand side of the grid, weirdly enough, got a really bad start, but that's the clean side of the grid. That's where the racing line is. And yeah, a lot of them really just didn't get off the line. Fernando Alonso actually ends up ahead of Gasly, or is trying to get ahead of Gasly on the hard compounded tyre. Gasly fighting back with the medium tyre grip, but gets unsettled on the curb. So yeah, Alonso down in P10 ends up ahead of my teammate who started the race in P5 on the grid. So yeah, a lot of changing of positions on that opening lap and that run to turn one, and now we're trying to swap the positions round, and myself and Pourchaire in the Audi nearly making some contact with the Frenchman there, getting caught out still by the very interesting, let's say, AI breakpoint into turn one. But more interesting right now for us is on the bottom right. Look at the ERS deploy. It's stuck on overtake. I am clicking my button right now, and that heads-up display actually flashed up by its own in the middle of Sector 2, and I was wondering why it was doing that, because I just closed it, and then I realised it doesn't ever open unless something's happened, and it's because I can't unclick overtake right now, so my car is forcing me to deploy battery through every corner, entry and exit, so I'm having to be very careful for wheel spin and traction. But what is helping actually is just, it's pushing our car along, so it's almost like a Herbie situation. My car has driven itself there, to be honest, and pushed me past Théo Pourchaire. Unfortunately, we lose deployment then before we get to the start-finish line. Pourchaire comes back at us, and immediately on lap 3, we're given back control of ERS, so I can actually now just have medium midway through the corner and focus on the traction and squeezing out the Frenchman there. But hopefully that's not a sign of bigger engine gremlins to come in this race, because that's a very early lap to have an ERS problem. But we're going to forget about that for now and just focus on the task at hand, and that's, well, one, overtaking Piastri with a very nice aggressive move on the inside into the final 3 corners, and now chasing after Liam Lawson, the race leader as it stands right now, and one of the nearest people to us in the Drivers' Championship. So this is really what you want to see in the final 4 races. 2 of the title protagonists fighting directly for the race lead. Here we go to the right. Lawson is going to give us no room to work with. I saw the writing on the wall. This squeeze was going to be on for the Kiwi driver, so instead we went to the left, but a little bit unsettled with DRS open on my rear wing. We managed to hold it through, and we managed to hold it through into turn 1 as well, having gone a little bit deep. But now Lawson will be on us and will be the one being a bit of a sitting duck without DRS here. And that McLaren, both McLarens actually, to be honest, are looking a lot better than they have done in recent races. You know, the fact that Piastri is up there with Lawson just shows the car itself is working better as Lawson nearly a bit of very, very unfortunate contact there, to be honest, as he pinched us a little bit to the outside. And again, that was the awkward AI breakpoint. And if I hadn't moved just a little bit left, I probably would have broken my front wing on his floor, on his side pod there, as we go once again for the re-overtake. This time we do commit to the inside line on the right-hand side, but we've gone deep, and Lawson comes back at us. He's on the outside. He's got the confidence to pull it through the long way around. We're going to try and keep the nose in, but he's just going to close the door, and we have a little bit of a snap of oversteer and now understeer with the marbles, and Piastri! Oh my God, Piastri, what are you doing? Piastri's come in for the massive pinch, and he's done his teammate a job there. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if McLaren just told him, can he make life as difficult as possible for the Lamborghini driver there, because he certainly has helped his teammate out now, get a 2-second bit of breathing room ahead of Pourchaire, who is now in second place. The Audi has taken the opportunistic moment to do a double overtake on myself and Piastri as we tripped over each other, and he's up into second place. But that could have been pretty dicey, you know. That could have been me into the wall easily with that little pinch from Piastri, but we're going to put that past us and just carry on, because and it's just so obvious how much pace we've got in this car, because no matter what's happening around us, we just keep on making the re-overtake to come back through into that clean air, as we have done now. We're into second once again, 2 seconds to try and bridge to Lawson. Meanwhile, fighting going on behind us. Now it's Piastri's turn to re-overtake Pourchaire on the inside of 130R. Meanwhile, if you have a look there, Gasly struggling still in the traffic in P8. P8. Lando Norris also not making too many movements in P10, whereas Fernando Alonso, in a bit more clean air, is actually now on the back of Porsche maybe. So we're nearly going to have, well, at least the three main championship rivals, Lawson, myself and Alonso, all together. Maybe if Alonso can make this move. And of course, remember, as Alonso does go for this attempted overtake for P4, he's on hards. So he's going to have a faster stint at the end of the race, as we see Gasly defending Verstappen for P8. So once again, just like the Canadian Grand Prix, Gasly in the first part of this race not really looking too lively and making movements around as we on lap 13 close up to Lawson, but we lift off and coast into turn 1 because I noticed we have a little bit of a problem on the fuel. We've underfueled the car. Maybe I moved a little bit too close to the limit when I was setting the fuel in the strategy screen. So we're having to do a little bit of lift and coast to try and bring that fuel back into the green. And I'm going to take this opportunity now in lap 13 to actually pit in before Lawson. He's carried on. Piastri's teammates covered me off, but he's behind me, so he won't be a problem. And I'm hoping we can actually just get an undercut going here on Lawson, because even with lifting and coasting, I was keeping up with him. The DRS was obviously pulling me in as well. So I think it's some clean air. I think his tyres are going off a lot more than mine were. For the first time really on mediums. I was actually feeling pretty okay on mediums for once in on this game and in this season. So now as we go on to lap 15, Lawson's in the pits. He's there on the left-hand side. We're up into first. Piastri's in second. So his teammates undercut him. And the Ferraris, both of them, are nearly maybe had him, you know, as Verstappen just overtook Schumacher there on that straight to get up into P4. So out of nowhere, in the pit stop phase, the two Ferraris have closed up together, but they're looking both pretty damn dangerous. They're right up Lawson's gearbox, but myself and Piastri, that undercut has worked amazingly for us. We're both 2.2 ahead of Lawson. Behind the Ferraris, Alonso close behind, then Porsche, Norris, Albon and Gasly is down to P10. So he's lost a position in that pit stop phase as Piastri has a little lunge on the outside of us at the hairpin, because at this point I was still trying to lift and coast into any big brake zone to make sure we get into the green on fuel, and then I thought I could think about controlling the race, but then I thought, hang on a minute, that's a little bit counterintuitive. Why don't I do it the other way around? So lap 16, I forget the fuel saving. I'm just going to go for it, try and use a bit of these hard tyres up, and try and get a bit of a buffer to Piastri, and that's exactly what we do. On to lap 17, Verstappen's got the fast lap of the Grand Prix so far. Not anymore. We go purple, and we've broken DRS of Piastri. Now we can do a bit of lifting coasting and try and get that fuel back into a good region, and hope that, to be honest, he just fights Lawson a bit much, because obviously Lawson just got undercut, so he's going to be a bit peeved off. So hopefully he's going to be fired up and fighting his teammate for second place, and that will give us the breathing room just to control this race from first place while saving that fuel. And on towards lap 20, that's exactly what's happening. We're still ahead by 1.5. Lawson going for the move on his teammate. Meanwhile, behind, Fernando Alonso trying to have a go at Max Verstappen. Can't quite make it, but Alonso, he's already overtaken Schumacher at this point. We just haven't seen it, but he's split the two Ferraris, and he is right up behind Verstappen. But both him and Verstappen are on mediums. Both of them started on the hard tyres, but Alonso just looks a lot quicker, despite the Ferrari being the better car on paper. Alonso maybe just more confidence, more focus within the cockpit. He's up into P4 now, and he's looking pretty damn racy. But you've got a big train then of Verstappen down to Porsche. Then there's a gap to Albon ahead of Gasly. So yeah, Gasly's having a real sleeper of a race as we go into the final 5 laps, and the Ferraris are now fighting each other, and that's Mick Schumacher on the inside. He is just overtaken Verstappen, and he's on hards. Schumacher's on hards, Verstappen's on the quicker mediums, and he's struggling for pace. He's falling behind. Behind Verstappen, you see Porsche and Norris fighting a little bit, and the Frenchman is going to get up into P7. So the Audi, having fell away a little bit at the end of the first stint and in the pit stop phase, I guess, you know, still a bit of work to do for the pit crew from the Audi side of things. Porsche himself just making the difference on circuit, as Lawson still ahead of Piastri then, but Alonso is now coming and knocking on the door. Lap 23, it's going to be the Spanish driver up into 3rd place. Yep, into 130R, books that in. And now he's got Lawson in his sight. We need to be careful. There are 4 laps left. The way he's looking right now, he looks pretty damn rapid. And at the moment, I'm still having to do a little bit of lift and coast. We need to get that fuel in check in order to then fully be able to defend whoever's going to attack us in the dying stages as we watch the Ferrari get past Piastri. Piastri's down to 5th place as Verstappen locks up, though. Verstappen's even worse off than the McLaren. Verstappen's locked up and is down to P8. His misery in the Ferrari continue. Even when Ferrari are the best car on the grid, Schumacher's actually looking pretty quick right now. Verstappen's just not comfy with his prancing horse. He's still not got used to it, and Schumacher is still looking the more comfortable of the 2 drivers as we watch Alonso make quick work of Lawson. Easy pass into 130R, just as he did with Piastri. He's up into 2nd place. The Red Bull Ford has come alive on these mediums. Alonso specifically has come alive because his teammate Norris is still down in P7, and the McLarens, well, they're sleeping. They're absolutely sleeping, and they're imploding here. What is gone on with the papaya pace here? Schumacher is up into 3rd place for Ferrari, just showing Verstappen struggles even more down in P8. But what's happened to McLaren here? They went from 2-3, well, at one point 1-2, 1-3 to now 4-5, and if they're not careful, poor chair might be right up their gearbox as well soon enough. And speaking about being up one's gearbox, well, Alonso is certainly in the mirrors and maybe sniffing around my gearbox at the moment. On the 2nd last lap of this Grand Prix, we go defensive into the hairpin, a little bit of a lockup. Alonso round the outside of this banked left-hander, but we're going to get the exit that we need just to try and stay ahead. Plenty of battery used. At this point, we are green for fuel, just 0.00 laps for fuel, so we still have to do a little lift and coast somewhere to try and get this car to the end on fuel. But Alonso is not giving up. He's there on the left. You can see him in that mirror, but we're just going to cut into the apex and hope that he wasn't there. He's not. He wasn't fully alongside us, and now we've done a little bit of lift and coast there. You saw the fuel on the right hand side, it went up. So I chose my little moment just to lift off just a little bit earlier, knowing that Alonso wasn't pressurising us. And now it gives us the chance just to fully defend him here into turn 1. We go defensive to the inside. Alonso is not going to make a move into turn 1. His teammate will, though. Norris up into P6. And Lawson's locked up. Lawson locks up ahead of him. Norris gets Piastri and poor chair gets Lawson. This is actually an implosion by McLaren. They're bottling this. They could have got a strong 2-3, but no, it's 5 and 7. What's happened to them on the hard tyres? That can't just be tyre wear. It must be something going on. Some gremlins for the papaya team. And meanwhile, on the last lap, last sector, we are P1. Alonso is now pulling out to try and maybe make a move. Schumacher's pretty close as well. The top 3 separated by 0.2 of a second as Norris overtakes Lawson through 130R. I think he's going to do it. Lawson will be down to P6. This is horrendous for his championship. Meanwhile, we are going to hold off Fernando Alonso. It's going to be a photo finish, but we are somehow going to hold on to win the Japanese Grand Prix. That has been a very, very decent one. Well managed with the fuel, but my God, Alonso was scarily quick at the end there. But both of us, P9 and 10 on the grid, we finished 1st and 2nd. It's a massive race for both of us. Terrible one for Lawson and Gasly.
It wasn't always plain sailing today, but it was a very important win nonetheless. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, this was won through an abundance of speed and skillful overtakes. Inside, outside, cutting underneath, we saw it all today. And it's really nice to see a Grand Prix won in that manner. A race to satisfy the purists today, I think.
The faces on our top 3 look so incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory, And a brilliant performance from them all.
It's a 5th win of the season to add to our tally, and this one seemed like a pretty crucial one up against a very quick Fernando Alonso, but it's also a very, we've taken the opportunity of Lawson imploding there, and Gasly, our teammate, also having a very quiet Grand Prix, just stuck in traffic all race. We've smashed and grabbed it and really blown the title wide open towards us, because Lawson's really not scored any points, Gasly not as well. Alonso, yes, he's got P2, but it's still 7 points on a man who was already 10 behind us. So now we're 17 points ahead of Fernando Alonso, leading this championship. He's 2nd place. Lawson is a further 5 points back, and then Gasly even further still. So going to the final 3 last race weekends, which include 2 sprint rounds as well, we've got the biggest cushion we ever have this entire season. So have we just turned it on and come good again just at the right moment? Well, we're going to have to find out as we progress through the remainder of this season, but it is very much crunch time, and it feels like the stakes are getting high, and at the moment we've delivered on the first time of asking here in Japan. But guys, if you have enjoyed the video, hit the like button, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.